Hi, Dr. Ruth Anderson here with Enlighten the World Network. I'm so honored to be here with Carol Ann Cross. We're going to be sharing with you tonight energies of the new world. And Carol's going to teach us about fairies. But before she does that, I want to talk with you a little bit about water dragons. But first, let me make sure that we're actually going live.
Okay.
Because you never know sometimes. So while we're looking for that, we're going to be on EWN, Enlightened Living. There we go. We are on. Okay, so I wanted to share with you a story about water dragons. So I guess this was 2 weeks ago now. Deb and Terry and I were in the Florida Keys, and we had a special session with Aodine Hathaway. And
She's great.
She was so much fun.
Yeah.
And she was introducing us to water dragons. And we had the bay behind us. So we're looking at Aideen, and we've got the bay behind us, and I can feel this dragon energy behind me. And I could feel that they were large, which frankly, when I learn about either a new archangel or a new energy, they do present to me big. So
Yeah.
I pay attention, I think. And there was one of them, I could tell there was one of them facing this way, and there was one of them facing this way, and their bodies were so large that their bodies were overlapping. So it was almost like one big dragon with two heads. And I said to Aideen, I said, can you see them? She goes, oh yeah. She goes, oh yeah, I see them. And she said, the one on this side, she said, in particular, wants to work with you, Ruth. And I thought, awesome. And I said, well, what's its name? And she said, oh, no, that's rude. I can't ask. You don't ask the dragon. You know, if the dragon wants you to know, then it'll tell you. So I learned a little bit about dragon etiquette. And the next morning I went into meditation and the dragon shows up again. And she's feminine, and she's, you know, I can see in meditation, like I climb on her back and I'm hugging her around the neck, and she's taking me on this journey. And she actually took me, Carol, to one of the places that you had taken us before, which was an underground open cavern. And there were all these gems in there. And it was so fun because this dragon, is putting on like earrings and necklace, and then she puts on this gown of these gems, and she was so fun, so funny. So of course, you know, I'm all dolled up with a tiara and, you know, the whole bit. And so then she takes me on this journey, and I asked her what her name was, and she said Ellie. And I said, okay, Ellie. And then the next day I go into meditation, there's Ellie. And I just wanted to test, I just wanted to make sure. And I said, so can you remind me what your name is? And she writes out in cursive, big letters, E-L-L-I-E. And the dot on the I was a sand dollar. And so when we went to a shell store, and I had to buy the sand dollar that was just like what Ellie used as the dot on her eye.
Right.
So it was so fun. And then my concern was, okay, well, I'm going back to Colorado, which is an arid state. We don't have a beach. We do have a lake. I can actually see a lake from our backyard, which is fabulous. And I said, oh, Ellie, are you going to be able to go with me? Right? Or do I have to leave you here? Do I get to enjoy you there? And she shows me her in a bathing suit. So she's ready for the lake. So I've been enjoying Ellie here in Colorado. So yeah, just such fun. And I have to tell you, Carol, if it wasn't for you introducing me to dragon energy when you did, I don't know that I could have experienced that whole thing. So thank you for that.
Look, it's just I just love the dragons. I really do. And I think that they're so much fun, and they're all part of this elemental world, which is the energies of the new world. Except they're really the ancient energies that we're just waking up to again. And the dragons are such fun, and they can do serious work as well, but they're bringing so much love and light and laughter into our lives, and that's just such a blessing.
Well, what has surprised me is the sense of humor
Yeah.
that I have experienced from these dragons that, I adore the archangels, but for me, they're just not that funny. I
No.
mean, they tend to be more serious and sacred. And so to be experiencing this elemental energy and to have it be fun and uplifting is such a treat for me.
And I think that the reason that they're coming so much to the fore in our lives now is that there's a lot of heaviness around. And so, we need to bring fun and laughter and happiness back in and not be weighed down by everything that's happening in the world. Because sometimes when people get into this very heavy mood, they forget what life is all about, and we're here to enjoy and to learn and to experience, but that doesn't mean it's all heavy and dark and weighed down. So we do need to bring fun and laughter back into our lives, and I think it's wonderful we can do it with the dragons and the fairies and all of the elementals, because they're working really hard on our behalf, and so but they're also bringing fun and laughter into our lives.
Right. Now, this is interesting because Sharon Boyle is watching with us and she's in the UK. So,
Ah,
and I think they tend to be more aware of
mhm.
the elemental energies than we are here in the States. At least
Yeah.
I don't know that many people here in the States that really understand the elementals. And
Yeah.
in Australia, Carol, I think are folks more open to the elementals in Australia?
Some are and some aren't. I think, this is one of the things that I think they're becoming more aware. Um, but, I know when in the UK, when I was in the UK quite a few years ago, we went up to Glastonbury, which you've probably heard of, Glastonbury. And that's actually a fairy portal. But the energy when you're at Glastonbury, the spiritual energy is just overwhelming. And also in Ireland, so been to Ireland, and the energy in places in Ireland is just wonderful. And I'd so love to go back to those places. Now I'm exploring more about the fairies and all of the elementals. So there's quite a few wonderful places in the UK, that you can go.
What, I have to tell you, Carol, that makes me want to have an Enlightened World Network retreat in the UK, maybe in Glastonbury or Ireland, so we can be there together to experience that.
Oh,
That would
that
be
would be
so
wonderful. And Glastonbury have an annual festival every year. I don't know that it's so much centred on the fairies and the elementals, but they do have a big festival once a year. And oh, we went to a place when we were in Ireland, and they had the story of life, and so you followed. I'd love to remember the name of the place. I can't at the moment. And you followed from. It was like you went on an elemental journey from being born, the birth canal, and going through all these stages of life and with the spirit world. It was just amazing. There just the energy in Ireland is really amazing. Yeah. So
I would love to go back. I was there, gosh, the girls were little, so it was probably 14 years ago or so.
mhm.
And I was not really that aware of energy at the time.
Mhm.
So I missed it. I missed all that. And I would love to go back with fresh eyes.
Yes, yes, yes. I think that would be a real blessing. a real blessing.
And
Now that, we're becoming more and more aware, and I think everybody can remember from their childhood, you know, did you have a fairy garden? Well, my granddaughter and I made a fairy garden here at home, and you'd walk near this fairy garden, and it wasn't all that elaborate, but the energies that were around it and in it is just really amazing. And we all knew stories about fairy godmothers who were there to help us and look after us, and I think all of these things from our childhood, when we stop and think back about them, we realize then that we had this connection with the fairies and all of the elementals, but perhaps as we got older, other things came into our lives, so we let them go. But I know I've moved my granddaughter's fairy garden up around we have a big fire pit. And so, when the fire is lit, that's the salamanders who are in charge. Fires can't happen without the salamanders. So the salamanders are there in the fire, and then in the background, we've got all of the fairy things behind them, and the toadstools and all of those sorts of things. So, it's so easy to bring a little part of fairyland into your world. And what happened to me, because I've been sort of concentrating on the fairies the last little while, more than ever before, because the fairies, they vibrate on a really high energy frequency. So in order for us to see them, they have to lower their frequency. So they don't always want to do that. But they reside in the astral plane. And so when we are astral traveling, sometimes during our sleep, and this is what happened to me the other night, I was aware that I had some fairies with me, and they were taking me to show me their home. And they took me down into the earth, and into not as big a cavern as we went with the dragons, but we went into a cavern, and they're all around. This was their home. Somehow or other, I was their size as well. And they had crystals, and they had all of their little hearths for the fires to do what they needed to do. And they had flowers all around, and it was just the most beautiful, peaceful place. And they just said to me, we wanted to show you part of our world. Mm. And I just felt so blessed that they had done that for me, because, there's these little tiny little beings with wings. They were just beautiful, because we can see them sometimes outside when we're in the garden. We're not necessarily aware of the full fairy, but we're aware of a ray of light or a sparkle of light. And that's the fairies. And my mother had a book, I can remember, in her main room, and it was all fairy stories, but brought into a modern day setting. I think that my sister has the book, but she had it sitting up on the table, and you only had to walk past the book, and you could feel this beautiful energy coming from the book, from the fairies and the gnomes and the elves. And it was just such a magical feeling to be there. And, this was her special book, and it was just lovely. I was just so blessed to have had access to that as I was growing up. Mm.
So that was something that your mother actually shared with you?
Yes, my mother shared a lot of things like that with me. So the fairies and the angels, like in the beginning with Mum, she was a beautiful clairvoyant, and she worked with the tarot cards. And then later in life, she also brought the angel cards in and worked with the angels. But another thing she shared with me was she didn't drive and I did. So we used to go to the Buddhist monks to do a meditation circle with them. And it was so interesting, because at the end of the night, the monks particularly wanted to ask Mum what she had seen and what she had picked up during the night. They were interested in everybody else, but they didn't want Mum to leave until they'd had a talk to her. She had She was just had a special gift. She really did. I was just so blessed to have her in my life. She would never tell me what my future was or what she could see happening for me, because she said I had to experience that for myself. So she was very wise in that regard. But yes, she yeah, I was really blessed that I chose her to be my mother and she chose me to be her daughter in this lifetime. So
I think you're very fortunate. My parents were so grounded, German
mhm.
and Scottish. And the Scottish part didn't bring any of the fun lore. we just got serious and grounded. So I'm having a second childhood, getting to learn about these things. So now I can share them with my daughters, but we just totally missed a couple generations there.
But, you know, it's to be able to now share that with your daughters. What a wonderful gift is that. So, you know, it's just, and yet my brother and sister grew up in the same household as me, but they saw life differently to what I saw life. And that didn't mean that I didn't have a normal childhood. You know, you go to school, you meet boys and life goes on, sort of thing. But I know that I was really blessed. But then, as I think I've expressed before this, Mum's mother died when Mum was only 5 years old. So, and she used to get into trouble because her grandmother, who was looking after her, would say, you know, but your mother's just died. You should be sad. You should be crying. And she said, but Mum has never left me. Mum is here beside me. She is standing here beside me.
Wow.
So she had that gift from the time she was very young. Though in her younger life, when, you know, you go into work and she had young children, that wasn't to the fore, that she was able to, it was always there, but you then have to live a very normal human life. So, and that's part of the balance that we have to have, the balance between our spiritual life and our physical life.
Right.
So, you know, she had to experience all of those things. But, and, you know, I think also the fairies and the elementals are coming more to the fore now because they want us to know that they are helping with healing the planet, but we as humans have to do our part as well. So like the gnomes, who are part of the fairy realm, the gnomes, they're the guardians of the element of earth. So what part of their role is to look after the soil, you know, like, you know how sometimes you can be in the garden and you can feel all of this. The earth feels different as you might be planting flowers or vegetables or whatever. And so it's the gnomes and the elves and the leprechauns and the pixies and all of those people, and they look after the soil, and they also can help. They can they sorry. So one of the problems we have with soil at the moment is that people are using pesticides.
That's right.
So they really, really want to get the message out. No pesticides. They don't want any pesticide. We have to learn to recycle. So they're very practical in that way. They just want me to tell you that we can pick up their energies with our clairsentience, our sixth sense. So even if people don't believe that they're clairsentient, I'm sure if they stop and think for a few moments, yes, I can feel that energy. That sixth sense is very strong in all of us. And so the gnomes and the pixies and all of those, they want us to remember to not spray, to pick up our rubbish, to recycle things, and to plant things like vegetables and flowers that are going to encourage the bees and everything. So I'll just step aside for a minute and talk about bees. So we actually have bees here at our place. We have native bees and honeybees. And probably for the last 6 months in Australia anyway, bees have been having a very hard time because of pesticides that some people use and things like that. But we've also had been in drought, so there was not a lot of water around for them. We were leaving water out for them. So their hives are prospering, but they're using all the honey to survive.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
they really want people to plant flowers for the bees and to not use pesticides. If you have a couple of little caterpillars in, well, you know, just move the caterpillars on. Don't spray them. Don't do anything like that with them, because it's so important for the bees, but also for us, because the gnomes can't do everything for us. We also have to do our part. And so a lot of, one of the things that I read, and I wasn't really sure how to sort of how to look at this. They said sometimes when it gets a bit much, that's when we'll have an earthquake and things like that. When the earth is being badly used, we will have earthquakes. And so I'm not really sure. I can't guide you on how that they can make that happen, or they're, maybe it's just that they're aware of it, that they've got to a stage that they can't do anymore. I don't know. So, but that was one of the things that, because they can feel and they know what's happening with the earth. And like the other thing we've just had in Australia a few months ago was all the bushfires.
Right.
So, you know, and a lot of trees in Australia have to be burnt to be regenerate. The seeds have to burn to blossom again. But that was massive, the fires that we had. So Australia is really coming back to life again, and then COVID hits. But that's okay. With COVID hitting, everybody has stayed home, hasn't done all the things. They're not driving their cars as much, so the air is not being as polluted as much. And the waters, the birds, the fish and the dolphins and the whales, you know, we're getting more and more aware of them because the water is clearer. Look at Venice. Venice has got dolphins and swans there, which haven't been there for so long because of the big ships coming into Venice and the pollution and everything. So this is where the fairy realm really works together with the human world. So with the air, we need to try and look at stopping our dependence on fossil fuels. With fire, for the salamanders and things, you know, what's happening with fire at the moment, the sun has got a lot of solar flares, and so that's also affecting pollution. It's affecting the air that we breathe. It's affecting everything that's around us. And in the water, well, you've had your beautiful experience with the water divas and things like that. And so there's the undines and the mermaids and all of those people. They're there to nurture and protect the animals in the water. And I always love to think about the fact that the whales and the dolphins sing the harmony to bring about balance on the earth plane, on the planet. So when you hear the whales singing, you know, that's a harmonic that's bringing about balance. It's going out into the air, but it's also echoing through the water. You know, it's like they pick up the sounds from some of the ships, and I just think all of that is beautiful. So we need to be so aware that the fairies and all of the creatures of the elemental realm are working for us and with us, because they're here all around us. But we also need to do our part. But that's sort of that side of it. But the fairies are here. They can help us with healing, with abundance of love and light and everything, not just abundance of money. but you know that their skills and what they can do to help us is just only, it's unimaginable really. All we need to do is to go within, excuse me, and we will be aware of their energy around us, because it's like they're in a bubble, but we're also in that bubble with them, and the planet's in that bubble, and so everything is here and is all interconnected within this bubble of life, or whatever we want to call it. So we're all here together, working together, for this beautiful planet, and for us to grow and to learn and to experience as souls, as well as in our human self.
You know, Carol, the one time that I've seen fairies, I mean, I've seen them energetically from a distance, but the only time I've seen them with my eye, it was during a snowstorm, and
Mm-hmm.
there were two things with that snowstorm. There was an icicle hanging from a really tall pine tree, and
Mm-hmm.
it just kept grabbing my eye, you know, shining in this, it just kept grabbing my eye. So I finally took out my phone and took a photo of it,
Mm-hmm.
and I blew it up so I could really see it. It had wings, it
Mm-hmm.
had a head, and I'm looking at that, I'm thinking, holy cow, that's a thing. I mean, this is not just an icicle, this is a thing, a living thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then same snowstorm. I
Yeah.
was sitting looking out the window, it was morning, and all of a sudden my eyes caught outside, and there's like little sparkles on the snow. And I was transfixed, absolutely transfixed. And it would like sparkle over here and then sparkle over here and sparkle over here. And I'm thinking, is that just the way that the sun is like hitting something that's melting, but it was way too cold to melt?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started doing muscle testing and asking, what am I looking at? And I was told it was ice fairies. So those are the only two times that I've seen with my eyes ice
Mm-hmm.
fairies. It was so cool.
Would you like to do a little meditation?
I would love to. Thank you
Right.
for asking.
And the other thing that they just said to tell everybody is that fairies love to be happy and party and socialize. And so when we're doing all of these things with our family and friends, we need to realize that the fairies are also enjoying it. So because they're part of this amazing, I won't call them a part of our team, but as you know, we have this amazing team of spirits, angels, spirit guides, the dragons, the unicorns, everything. And the fairies are there as well, but we don't actually have our own fairies. You know, like I can't say my fairy's name is Frida or whatever, because we don't actually have our own fairies, or not to my knowledge anyway. We may have a group of fairies who love to be with us, so that's really lovely. So, but I just, I thought we could just do a little simple meditation, and we can just see what happens. Okay.
I would love that. Thank you.
Okay, I hope you can't hear my washing machine going. Is that making a noise in the background? Oh.
No.
Okay, so just close your eyes and take a couple of long, slow, deep breaths. Now, it's very important when we work with the fairies to meditate with them, that we ground ourselves. So I want you just to be aware of tendrils or roots coming down from your base chakra and the soles of your feet, and going down deep into Mother Earth. And as we go down into Mother Earth, we find a beautiful crystal. Now I want you to wrap those roots, those tendrils around the crystals, because crystals are also part of the fairy realm. Now come back up into your heart space. up into your heart space and just allow the energy from your heart to expand out. Expand out to fill the whole of your body. Beautiful, beautiful pink energy of unconditional love. And breathing in and out. Now I want you to see or feel a fairy. This fairy has come to say hello to you, to make themselves known. Just feel their energy and feel their love. Now as you breathe out, I want you to breathe out your love to the fairy. And as you breathe in, you realize you're breathing in the love from the fairy. Just continue to breathe in, sending your love. And breathe back in the fairy's love. And as you do this, you're aware of the fairy's heartbeat. You are aware of the love that the entire fairy realm have for you. They are working with you at this time in all that you do. And they want you to share out your love of the fairy realm and the elementals. For it's time that we all became aware of them again. Your fairy may have a message for you. So thank the fairy for coming today on behalf of the entire fairy realm and on behalf of all of the elementals. And come back into your heart space. When you're ready, take a breath, deep breath, and open your eyes.
That was fun, Carol.
Good. Good.
I got to experience. Are they always little? I mean, like I've seen water divas that were really long, but are fairies always quite small?
I imagine, no, sorry, I'm not imagining. They're telling me that it's easier for the fairies to work when they're as small. But if they need to, they can get bigger. But they choose to be small so they can sit on the petals of the flowers and to do all of those things. The goblins and the elves and all of those, they can change in size as well. But the fairies tell me they can move better when they're small, but they can get big if they need to. Because it
Right.
takes a lot of energy for them to do that, because they vibrate at such a high vibrational level.
When you told us to feel the heartbeat, it was definitely faster, definitely faster. But I experienced a little guy, a little male, and he invited me to make myself smaller to join them. So he told me to not be so serious. He was yeah. And I could see that sort of behind him off to the side there were a bunch of smaller females. So
Yeah.
he was like the spokesperson, I guess. So I will enjoy checking that out later.
Yeah, no, it's really lovely. Well, see, remember when I was saying about where they took me the other night in my dreams or astral traveling, I was small to fit down in there with them too. So, it's like all of these things. Our dragon can be big or small, and so can the elementals. So yeah, I just as we were starting to do that, there was this bright purple fairy came into my space almost as soon as I started talking then, and so that for me was really beautiful too. So so
So
yeah, I think that it's time for us to start becoming aware of all of the energies of the new world, all of the elementals. And I hadn't realized until I was doing some reading the other day that the crystals are part of the fairy elemental realm. So, because I love crystals, and when we pick up a crystal, we know which crystal we're meant to have because that crystal will talk to us. And so, that sort of made a bit of sense to me when I sort of read that. So, and the other thing that I thought was lovely was the fairies said that they also leave feathers out for us. It's not just the angels who leave feathers out for us, the
oh,
fairies do it as well.
that's sweet.
Yeah. So I have a lot of we call them bromeliads. I think you call them bromeliads or something like that.
No, we call them bromeliads. Yeah,
Sorry?
the same. We call them bromeliads.
Bromeliads. And I have a garden that is just all bromeliads. And you know how they have that sort of tunnel in the middle of it? I can remember Mum telling me once, we were in the garden one day, and she said to me, "You know that the fairies sleep in those tubes at night, don't you?" And I was thinking about it the other day when I was out in the garden, and I could almost imagine them all going to bed at night into the funnels of the bromeliads. When we allow ourselves to step into this world of fun, um, childlike innocence in some ways, it's just amazing the things that are shown to us, the things that we can experience. When we let ourselves go of our seriousness part, we have to be, serious in many ways, but, it doesn't mean we have to be serious all the time. And I think this is one of the wonderful things of being with children. They've got really great imaginations, and we can learn from that, because I believe one of the greatest gifts that anybody working with spirit or the angels is to have a great imagination, because I think that helps us step into the other realms of life, the other realms of the fairies, of the angels, and they're all there working together, and they're there for us. But we also have to ask the fairies. We also have to ask for anything that we want them to do for us, other than the things that are their role, which is like looking after the air and looking after the water and looking after the soil and all of those things that they're doing on our behalf. So because they're doing these things for us without being asked to do them, you know, this is where I think it's so important for us to do our part as well, you know, for whatever we can. And, you know, I'm just, because nature is so interconnected with us. And, you know, I always think, well, without the bees, we don't exist. So we need to be able to look after the bees. And I just had this little vision of a fairy riding on the back of a bee. It was so cute.
That is
Sorry, they just flitted past me as I was talking about the bees. So, so yeah, I just think this is just a wonderful time for us. And they also would like everybody to know that, you know, a lot of times people say, oh, don't pick a flower because the flower will just die. But the fairies want you to know that you pick a flower and you bring it into the house, the fairies are still with the flower.
Oh.
So the fairies can come into the house when you pick your flowers. So they don't want you to think that just because you've picked a flower, then that's the end of the story, because it's not.
Got it. Thank you. Are there different kinds of fairies for different topographical areas? So would a desert have different elementals than a more humid area?
Well, you would probably, so what you would do then is, like, in the desert, the gnomes that would live in the desert and the salamanders and things, it's like humans, you know, we adapt to being in different climates. And so the fairy realm and the elementals would do the same. So the ones that would be in the desert, they would know how to look after the earth and all of the water and all of those things that are in the desert. It's like the ones in the Atlantic, or not Atlantic, Alaska and places like that, and in the snow. You know, they adapt just as humans adapt. So they would be, you know, they just say, we're climate ready is the word they just said to me. So, you know, they're able to live, and they live in specific areas because that's where they choose to live. It's just like humans. We choose to live in a particular area and we adapt to it. So it's the same with the elementals. You know, it's not that I suppose that, you know, a lot of the water nymphs and things, but they can easily live in a river, a stream, if necessary in a mud puddle, because it's wherever there is water, then the water divas and the mermaids and the undines and all of those things. So an undine, undine, whatever you pronounce it, that's just a water nymph. It's another name for a water nymph, which is like your water divas.
Right.
So you've had the experience with them, and they reside in water. So, and they look after the water. And I actually watched when you had Aiden. I could never say her name correctly. I absolutely loved it when you had her on the show. I was watching that live that day, and the water behind you, I could see the dragons and I could see the energies, and it was just beautiful. So, you know, these are all of the things that are out there in nature, and we're just surrounded by it. Even if you're sort of living in a desert, you're still going to have little creatures in the desert, and little animals and lizards and all those sorts of things. So there's life everywhere, no matter where you look. And therefore the elementals are there, and the fairy realms there, and they are all just adapted to the climate, as I said.
But what I am hearing, without you saying it, is that to experience it, we need to put our focus and our attention outside into nature. That for those folks that are just staring at their computer screen all day, you're going to miss it, folks. You got to shut off the computer, shut off the TV, shut off the computer, go outside.
Go outside. And you know yourself, when you walk outside, even if you don't have a lush garden or anything like that, you can still feel the difference in the air in the energy in the air, and to be able to go outside and walk amongst the trees, or to plant something, or even if you don't if you have one tree, or you have a garden of pot plants, you're still going to have fairies living in your pot plants. So put a chair next to your pot plants. If you've got nowhere else to go, make yourself a cup of tea and sit there and just let loose the reins on your beliefs. Allow yourself to step into that a magical world of childhood, because we all have this inner child, and our inner child knows exactly how to be a child. And sometimes our inner child is longing to be nurtured, and by going out there into nature, that's wonderful. And if you just have a little balcony on a unit in a tower block, just have a couple of pot plants, and have a pot that you can plant some lettuce in or some herbs in, and they're going to be there. They're going to be there anyway. But if you do something that's like a treat for you as well as a treat for them, then you're going to become more aware of them, because they're going to let themselves be known to you. You know, after the rain, you walk outside and you can see the drops glistening on the leaves, and you know, this is nature and the fairies and everybody letting us know they're there, and it's just, you know, it's a wake up call for us all. It's a wake up call for humanity. It's a wake up call for the planet.
Right.
And so I think this is so important for all of us to experience that, to let ourselves go a little bit and have fun.
Yep. And don't take yourself so seriously.
That's exactly right. Because, you know, this is what's needed, especially at this time. People are just stepping into that negative, serious world. Let it go, people. Let it go. Hop on the back of a fairy or your dragon and go for a fly.
I love it.
Of course, you'd have to make yourself little to get on the back of the fairy, but, you know.
True. But not the dragon, not the dragon.
Yeah, that's right.
That's great. So, all right, friends, we are going to say to you, turn off your computer as soon as Carol tells us, how do we learn more about you, Carol? How do folks listen to you on Angel Heart Radio?
Okay, so I have a website called Carol's Angel Wings. You can find me on Facebook, Carol Ann Cross, and I have an email address, carolsangelwings@gmail.com. And I'm on a host on Angel Heart Radio, and you can find out all about that on angellight777.com.
Perfect. So our friends that are watching, we love you, and we want you to turn off your computer.
Yeah.
And go outside. So y'all have a good rest of your day. Have fun. Don't take yourself so seriously, as I look in the mirror, as I say that out loud. And thanks for checking in on EWN for Energies of the New World. And we'll see you next time. Have a good day.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, everybody. See you next time.